Your local writers group is crap. Stop burning off your free time in the presence of introverted do-nothings. Instead, join the Gosslings Writers Group live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a digital gang for writers. Writers who actually write stuff, who use typewriters. Writers who name their pit bulls Hemingway. Writers who write all the people who've ever offended them into their stories, then murder the shit out of them. The Gosslings. We don't always act pretentious, but when we do, we wear f***ing ascots. Welcome to the Gosslings.
Write like a man. Use a typewriter.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nick.
And we are the Gosslings, and despite our relatively slow internet connection for the day, we are doing the live stream.
I will be talking to AT&T about this.
Right, for all the good it does.
Absolutely.
You know? Man, we have an awesome guest for you today. We have one of my favorite online YouTube content creators. He is the host and the creator of Creepy Little Book. He has been doing live streams and videos for years now. We love his content. I would say he is the Archmage of the Arcane, the Sultan of the Surreal, the Lord of the Starry Void, the Enomatarch of the Esoteric.
I don't know what that means, but that's so cool.
The King of the Creepies, and the Master of the Mystorical, Pete from Creepy Little Book. What's up, Pete?
Hey guys, how you doing? You forgot the part where you mentioned I'm a weirdo in the dark.
You are a weirdo in the dark. You know what?
Just a
And that's
weirdo
what
in
I
the
love. He's just a floating head in the void, you know. And
Well, I was going to say he's more like the relevant George Norrie of the 21st century.
or the Art Bell.
Yeah.
The Art Bell.
Yeah.
Of the, yeah.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
humble me.
Yeah.
You humble me. Art Bell is an
Man.
idol of mine, and if I could be anywhere near as good as Art Bell was,
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, man, the first time I came across your channel and I listened to some of your videos and the way you do it live streaming every night, I was like, dude, this is just like Coast to Coast. This is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
That is
yeah,
the feel.
Coast was a big inspiration for me. Coast to Coast, In Search of, Unsolved
In
Mysteries,
Search of.
sightings,
Yeah.
all these kind of esoteric programs that appeared over the decades.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Pete, I'm 38. Nick, you're 43.
We don't need to talk about it.
Okay, fair enough. But you're about that same age, right? Like mid to late 30s, is that right?
I'm as old or as young as you need me to be.
I love it.
That's a good answer. But I remember watching
Yeah.
Sci-Fi Channel used to run In Search of
Right.
all the time with Leonard Nimoy, and man, like the Patterson footage
Mm.
always was
Oh,
like
yeah.
the creepiest one.
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching that at my grandparents' house on the weekends.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's good stuff, man. And then, you know, I used to listen to your live streams when I worked third shift from home about a couple years ago. And man, those Nick made the astute observation. It's like being a trucker listening to Art
Yeah.
Bell while you're on
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
I really appreciate that, guys.
Yeah.
So, well, we got a bunch of questions, bunch
Yep.
of topics we want to cover. Pete,
Sure.
you know, we had asked if you wanted to get the topics as a preliminary, and Pete was gracious enough to just be like, "Nah, just shoot from the hip, man."
Yeah,
You know, yeah.
which we will. After we do our toast, though.
Oh yeah, I forgot the
we,
toast.
We got to
That's my
do. We
bad.
got to do the
Sorry.
toast because I'm thirsty.
Yeah, fair
Right.
enough. What are we drinking here today?
Well, this is Michter's
Victor's
small
Okay.
batch
Small
bourbon
batch.
whiskey.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay. You want me to start?
Yeah, you start.
So the way we do it is whoever starts, it's kind of liturgical. It's one person says the first half, and then everybody else says the second half.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You start. I'll
yeah,
do the
sure.
second one.
Take up the broken sword of your father.
And strike down the darkness.
It's so yummy when it hits your lips.
Ah.
So, all right. So I want to get started by asking kind of a lot of this got started probably 2 or 3 weeks ago when I was on your live stream in the comments, and I had asked you, I would be really interested to know, Pete, what your spiritual journey was. Because you cover such a wide variety of topics. I think, you know, you had mentioned being Catholic in your upbringing. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so I would just be curious to know, as much as you want to discuss, what your spiritual journey has been.
Well, I was educated in the parochial school system for about 12 years. So like most of my upbringing was really steeped in Catholicism, at least in the education department. And there was a point in my life, probably when you're around a teenager, that doesn't really click as much as it does when you're young. And you find this kind of rebellious streak, and I was no exception to that. I spent years as a musician, and living that lifestyle. Kind of ambivalent towards religion for most of it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily atheistic, but not really concerned at all for religion.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, though, I used a lot of religious imagery and morality tales in the music that we would make.
Yeah.
So, that went on for a good period of years. I would say that after that, I started leaning towards atheism. Not in an intentional sense, but I completely lost my faith, is a way to put it. It was just gone. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, I'm going to be an atheist. It was just gone.
Right.
It just couldn't be. It was like, it was so intangible. That's something I dealt with for a handful of years. And I think once my children came along, that was a paradigm shift for me.
Really?
Once you've got some skin in the game, you certainly hope for a divine plan, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very common story that a lot of us can relate to. I think a lot of people have that sort of journey, because we all have a falling away at some point, and that falling away in a lot of ways is healthy, because you need to sort of jettison the early stuff that maybe helped guide you when you were little, but it doesn't work for you later. And it's sort of like taking a piece of iron and running it through the forge and making steel out of it.
Yeah. Well, and you're right about the kids too. I mean, once you have people in your life that you're totally responsible for, and you love them more than yourself, you're like, you know what? I definitely want the very best for them. And this is how I am. I'm like, I'll gamble with me, but I won't gamble with them.
Right.
And that's true
absolutely.
even with spiritual matters, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what was the band?
Oh, there were two of them. The first one was called Anger and Addiction. And I think you can still find some of them songs on SoundCloud.
Okay.
Cool.
Very thrash type punk band.
Nice.
And we played the local underground scene, and we did minor shows here up and down the East Coast.
Cool.
But it was cool. The biggest band we opened for was the Misfits.
Really?
So that was pretty rad.
Yeah.
But we played with bands like The Unseen, another great punk band from Boston, The Casualties from New York, The Virus, who's they're from all over the place. It was a good time. Anger and Addiction was a real passion project for me. After that came a band called Last Year's Youth that was a little more radio friendly, I think. It was more melodic, still in the vein of punk rock, but more like The Clash, and less like a band like DRI,
Yeah.
What did you play? What was your instrument? Drums, guitar?
I was the singer, baby.
Yeah. Silken melodic tones.
No cowbell? No cowbell?
No cowbells.
Anything like that?
That's right. I was the singer.
Yeah, that's
so
nice.
I wrote most of the
Grabbing that
lyrics.
microphone. That's awesome. Yeah.
And this is the same
And you
microphone.
still
I've been
putting
using
that
this microphone
sultry-
for 20 years.
I'm going to compliment you on that mic. That's cool looking. And
What kind of
Thank
mic
you.
do you
Yes,
use?
it's a Shure 55 SH Series 2.
nice.
55. Dude,
The
it has
Elvis
got
mic.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. It's got that vintage classic look to it. And the sound quality is always amazing. So, yeah. Are you stuck with, are you like committed to it forever?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would rather have to find a way to hook this up to a computer for the rest of my life than have to switch over to something more modern or not as beautiful.
It is
Right.
pretty. Yeah,
That's the
man.
thing, man. It's got that Art Deco, just beautiful aesthetic to it that, like,
Mhm.
none of the new stuff, unless it's intentionally angling for that retro look, none of that new stuff looks like that.
No.
So,
Yeah.
well, cool. So I got a bunch of pet questions that I like, pet project subjects that
the
I want to
question
ask.
gun is loaded.
Yeah, it's the revolver. The mag is full. Let's say that. I really wanted to ask you first about what your thoughts were on the Ark of Gabriel, because it is, to me, one of the strangest stories. And I have to tell you, I found out about the Ark of Gabriel because of you and your. Before you did the live stream, you did a bunch of shorter videos that are excellent. I love your back
Thank you.
catalog, and it's so diverse. It's everything from Enoch and mysticism to the Jason Project to Bigfoot, Dogmen. It's everything. It's everything you would ever want to explore as far as esoterica. But I had a real hard time finishing up the 5th Heavenly Realms novel, and I didn't know what to do with it. It was a project that I abandoned like 12 years ago, and once I learned through the Creepy Little Book YouTube channel about the Ark of Gabriel, I was like, this is it. This is like the key that
It's the missing
unlocks.
piece.
It was a missing
Right.
piece of the puzzle that I needed for the plot. So I personally have to thank you, Pete, for solving
to.
my plot problems. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the Ark of Gabriel is this fascinating thing, and it pops up, about a handful of years ago in the zeitgeist.
Right.
There was a time when this Antarctica topic was just sizzling hot, and that was the moment. And fortunately, like, I had seized on the research immediately. Like, I really had the opportunity, the time, and the drive to like get down into it. And I had drilled down into as much Antarctica as I possibly could. And this Ark of Gabriel thing along, and I said I had to find some evidence for this. I needed to know if this was real. And it took a lot of evidence into the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Church to kind of trace the lineage of this object and whether it actually existed. So was there definitive proof there was something like this? I do believe that there was an object revered as a sacred item in 9th century Ethiopia that could be considered the Ark of Gabriel.
Yeah.
Does it go missing at some point in history? Is it maybe taken back to Mecca at some point after the Muslim conquest? I don't know. But I speculate that's the only way it could have made its way back to Mecca, to be discovered by the construction team that was digging under the Kaaba when they found it.
Yeah.
So I think it was an interesting story, one that really has many twists and turns involving high-profile figures, from Buzz Aldrin to the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, the Pope himself, John Kerry. These people that were traveling down to Antarctica, the reported stories of creatures down there known as the Guardians, who Kerry met with, invited himself to meet with. Then purportedly there was an earthquake off the coast of Christchurch, New Zealand, in retaliation for this uninvited, drop-in. These Guardians didn't like that. So they were able to use whatever technology they have to conjure up an earthquake.
Was that around 2017 when that happened?
Yeah, right around then. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know how real all that is. But...
Right, I know. Well, and the interesting thing that I had heard, and this is sort of when you get into that QAnon movement, is that John Kerry, being a spokesperson for the deep state, had gone down to Antarctica to plead with the Guardians to not let Donald Trump become president, and they basically told him to bugger off. And then when
they said John Kerry, that's the guy,
right? That's the guy you send merch,
Oh man!
And then he gets back to, he has a layover, I guess, in New Zealand, and that's when the earthquake hits. Just like you, I don't know how true that is, but that is sort of woven into the fringe of that conspiracy theory, and it's interesting stuff. Who do you think the Guardians are, if they're real?
I don't know. They could be ultra terrestrials from the inner Earth.
Yeah,
they could be leftover pre-Adamites who came to colonize Antarctica
Yeah.
Millions of years ago. There was the Heffernan manuscript that speaks of 7 cities that were created down there, almost out of Lego blocks too. They were plastic cities. They were built out of a polymer that we don't understand, by a technology that's far advanced from ours. But these were cities, nonetheless, spotted throughout Antarctica, built at a time when the continent was tropical, by Martian refugees who came here in flying discs. Now, the funny thing about the flying discs is that the Heffernan manuscript predates the 1947 sighting by Kenneth Arnold at Mount Rainier, where the term flying saucer was coined from.
Really?
So, was there some truth or validity to the Heffernan manuscript? I don't know. It could be as far-fetched as the Shaver mysteries at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's the interesting thing is that like Antarctica seems to be the focal point or the nexus, the hub for so much of the mysteries that we all kind of delve into, whether it's ancient aliens, whether it's Atlantis, whether it's Tartarus and the Nephilim. I mean, it's just it all, and even with like the flat Earth community, with the NATO map and the treaties, the Antarctic Treaty. It's just that is the most fascinating, mysterious.
Yeah, no one's allowed to fly over it. You think they'd be more concerned about like the North Pole, where countries are actually crowded around it pretty closely,
Right, yeah.
not Antarctica.
Yeah.
If they treat it kind of like the moon, you know, they treat it like the moon.
Yeah, to an extent. There is the case to be made for an entrance to the hollow Earth at the South Pole. And that would explain a lot of the secrecy, even if you go with that flat Earth model, and some of those are really far out, but even if you go with that, there's still the idea that someone's keeping the true nature of Antarctica a secret.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, although I lean more towards the direction of a hollow Earth, that maybe is the middle ground. I could meet somebody who has more of a flat Earth model in mind. That's where I could meet them in the middle.
That's kind of what
somebody's kind of covering up the true nature of Antarctica.
Right. Yeah. There's just where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's like there's just something there. There's an itch there that everybody is sort of trying to scratch at, and no one is allowed to. I mean, the ancient cities that predate everything else, the flying saucer mentions, which predate everything else. And then for me personally, I was always fascinated when it came to Antarctica with the fact that H.P. Lovecraft talked about it in at the Mountains of Madness, which, aside from the Call of Cthulhu, is probably his most popular work. It's certainly his longest, and that was 100 years ago. And then there were tangential connections to Aleister Crowley. And Aleister Crowley is infamous in the esoteric community for a number of things, Lamb being one of them, So there's just like all these different things. It's like, how does he know how did H.P. Lovecraft, who lived in New England, I think most of his life in the early 20th century, how did this guy know about this stuff in Antarctica, that ties into so much other stuff?
Good question.
It's a strange thing. I often wonder if there was some kind of talent or ability that Lovecraft had, similar in the vein to Edgar Cayce. Was this somebody who was receiving images from the great depths of the cosmos, from these uncaring, ineffable beings that exist in the Cthulhu mythos and throughout the works of Lovecraft? I'd like to think that maybe there was something to that. Maybe he was a dark prophet of forgotten gods. But it's just fiction at the end of the day.
It is. Right. Yeah. It's not anything you can prove, but there's something like there's a kernel to it that is just so, it has the ring of truth to it in a very weird, like atomized sort of way.
When you hear it, there's probably something in there that's true,
because it's so different. It's just so singular. Like no one else ever came up with, to the best of my knowledge, no one else ever came up with anything like what Lovecraft came up with these interdimensional trends. Yeah. These like translucent, uncaring super beings that are beyond ancient, beyond primordial. Like you had mentioned something that that I have heard very few people mention for the past 20 years that I've been studying this, which was the Pre-Adamites, and which kind of, if I'm tracking, goes to the gap theory between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, that there was a whole pre-Adamic civilization. Am I tracking on that correctly?
I believe it.
Yeah?
Really?
What do you think about that?
I don't doubt it for a second. I think that there were other people here.
Yeah.
You know, Cain was worried somebody was going to kill him.
Right.
Who else was around?
Yeah.
Pre-Adamites.
Yeah. Do you think they're
You know, they
Bigfoot?
were here. I don't think they were Bigfoot, but I think they were people.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, they could have been, you know, we get the stories of these various different species that inhabited the earth that were humanoid, and they're always trying to link these missing missing gaps in the fossil record to evolution, and whether or not, you know, this ancient primate was more man than monkey. So we see a lot of that in science. But at the same time, science accepts the idea that our world was once populated by multiple species of humans.
Right.
So, you know, if we look at it biblically, I think that's the same kind of thing. You know, multiple species of humans lived on this planet. So the Pre-Adamites may not have had that kind of relationship with the divine that was bequeathed to Adam and Eve. You know, these might have been the first in a new creation. So were there other people running around scuttling across the face of the earth? I think that's the case. And I think that they were human, but not in the way we would compare ourselves to, you know, modern man. You know, they're not exactly like us. Maybe they I've heard this saying about the uncanny valley, that the reason it exists is because at some point in our ancient past we had to fear something that looked human but wasn't.
Oh, right.
So maybe that's what these Pre-Adamites were. Maybe that's something lost in our genetic memory, that they had the appearance of a humanoid, but we're different from us in some way.
That's,
You know,
you know what? That's so smart. I never thought about that, but 100%.
Yeah.
There's got to. It's the same reason why most people have an intrinsic fear of snakes, from at least from you know, if from an evolutionary perspective, you know, it's from when we were primates in the trees, and you know, the snakes were our main predators up in the trees, or our main competition, and so that genetic, you know, echo has trickled down. You know, I'm just afraid of snakes because I mean, it obviously didn't work out in the Garden of Eden, and I just don't like it. So, and I was traumatized by Aladdin, so you know. But
Well, I'd like to ask you about Hollow Earth. So, pretend I'm a total noob,
a total normie, not
a
into
normie.
anything cool.
a normie. Yeah,
Never.
pretend I'm an accountant, and I have followed that path all my life. And how would you describe the theory of Hollow Earth, and why would someone like hypothetical me want to even consider it? Like, what's there?
all right. So the Hollow Earth theory goes back a long ways. We're talking hundreds of years. I think it might have been Kepler who first postulated on the idea of the Earth being hollow with concentric spheres within. But the theory wouldn't really take off until the 1880s. It was replete throughout literature of the time, literature that was trying to pass itself off as true stories. Things like The Smoky God by Olaf Jensen, books like Edda Dorfa, The Strange Journey, Vril, The Coming Race, Journey to the Center of the Earth. You know, these books were speaking of subterranean worlds inhabited by intelligent beings. At the same time, there was a man named John Cleves Sims Jr. who had postulated that there were openings to this hollow earth at the poles. And he took every penny he could get his hands on to pay for postage, to write to every prince, parliament, and president in the world to try to raise money for a hollow earth expedition to the South Pole.
Oh, that's
Now, he never achieved that goal, but what he did do was a lecture tour around these United States to spread his hollow earth theory. He would print pamphlets, he would do these lectures. He even had a globe made to use as a prop in his presentation featuring the openings at the poles. And his tombstone, to this day, no doubt, is a globe with a big hole in it. Now, why should anyone believe in this hollow earth theory? I don't think anybody should. I don't postulate. I'm sorry. I don't propagate anything for the purpose of trying to convince people to believe in it. Nor do I debunk anything. So I try to stay on that middle ground where it's your choice to accept or reject any of the information I present.
Yeah.
But for me, the hollow earth is so fanciful,
Mm-hmm.
so fantastic when we talk about an inner civilization on this earth that has its stuff together in a way that we don't here on the surface.
Yeah.
A fantastic city called Agartha, or refugees from ancient continents like the Muria inhabiting this inner world, perhaps intermingling with extraterrestrials using advanced technologies. Maybe there are extinct creatures from the surface still alive down there, like woolly mammoth or rhinoceroses. You know, it opens the door to fantastic possibilities. At the same time, there's a lot of new age kind of theosophical beliefs that creep into the hollow earth over time. You get the idea of it being the home of the ascended masters, with the chief among them being Sanat Kumara, the king of the earth. This kind of ethereal being that has transcended the mundane of our mortal lives and become something more ethereal, something bigger, a spiritual creature. And at the same time, some of these ascended masters are still physical, like the Count of Saint Germain, who is a famous immortal. He's also counted among these ascended masters. And all that comes from theosophy and the works of Helena P. Blavatsky, who really is kind of foundational when it comes to talking the Western esoteric tradition. She brings a lot of the beliefs from the East to the West in an age where people were ripe for spiritualism.
Yeah.
And her exploration into these different occult sciences would ripple throughout the decades, and people would be referencing her work or incorporating her ideas into all manner of belief systems over the years.
And she kind of was the harbinger, the bridge between the old world, sort of new age philosophies and into the Western world in a lot of ways, it seems, because she's referenced a lot. We always see her reference. I would love the idea of there being a hollow earth with an inner earth with this just vast array of different, it just the possibilities are endless. Like your imagination, like as a writer, your imagination can just like go wild.
Sure.
I'd always wanted to go back and redo the first Heavenly Realms novel. Instead of it being set in heaven, have it be that pre-Adamic world where like Lucifer is given control over everything, and then he decides to keep it for himself, and there's the rebellion, and then they have to like go into the earth to survive, because there's all that.
Cool. That's cool. I like that.
Right? Like it's all in that mythology too, that especially Greek mythology of Hades and Tartarus, and it's replete throughout civilization. So
yeah, and I'll tell you that what's interesting to me about what's under the surface of the earth is that we have not explored it at all. Not really. Well, we've drilled down maybe like 8 miles. It's 4,000 miles to the core. Yeah. And they speculate that it's, there's the crust, there's the mantle, there's the core. They don't know that. They don't know. Yeah. But it's settled science.
Right.
And I'm a contrarian. So anytime I'm told what to believe and there's really no good evidence or proof to support what I'm supposed to believe, and I'm told it's settled science, I'm like, no, there's probably something else there. And the great thing about it, we've been to the moon, we've been, you think about exploration, and imagination is what has driven exploration and discovery, not being told, nope, that's where the world ends. There's no more of it.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think it's anything like what we see in the little, Earth dissection diagrams. There's got to be something down there. And what was really interesting too, I was reading through the Book of Enoch, and one of one of the visions that he has, all of it's, he's going to all these different, astral and spiritual places, and, hell, or he's going to Tartarus, he's going to, heaven, he's seen all these places. And then he says, and then I went to a place where there was a mountain and it was made out of solid rock. And it was divided into 3 or 4 chambers, and that's where the souls of the dead were. He was describing Hades, and it was the only place in his visions where he described as being solid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And I thought that it was interesting that the chambers of the dead, or whatever, was under the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do Hollow Earth theories always kind of start with the idea that the entrances are the poles? Could there not be other entrances?
Well, there are other entrances that are speculated. You'll see various Hollow Earth maps that might point to some of these different openings. Some believe there's an opening at Giza, somewhere near the pyramids. Others believe there's an opening at Mammoth Cave.
I've been there. I've been in the cave.
Very deep cave.
Yeah.
There's also a belief there's an opening in the Nahane Valley in Canada, up in the Great Continental Divide that exists up there. There's a belief that there is an entrance to this Hollow Earth. It really was this John Cleve Sims, the aforementioned lecturer, who cooked up the idea of the poles being the place where you could get into this Hollow Earth. So before him, there really wasn't much in the way of discussion about that. This was really his brainchild. Then, we get stories from World War II that make it all the more stranger. Obviously the Germans were down there. They were conducting recon for perhaps a military establishment. Some say they did establish a military base down there. That was still in operation after the war, which is where Admiral Byrd comes in, an Operation High Jump, where they sent a contingent of military personnel down to the Antarctic for some purpose, but they wound up losing a couple planes, a couple boats sank. They limped back here, talking about craft that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. So perhaps there was some Hollow Earth activity going on there that raises more questions than answers. It just really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the so Admiral Byrd, I remember Operation High Jump. Later on, it was discovered in his journals, his diaries. Later on, that he had that experience where he believes he may have flown into, what we describe as Hollow Earth, and he sees these crafts.
Right.
But I was under the understanding that was at the North Pole and not the South Pole. Do you know for certain?
I
I've
believe it was the South Pole, because there really is there's no continent on the North Pole. North Pole's just ice, Yeah. There's no landmass under it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The South Pole has landmass under 2 miles of ice nonetheless, but the North Pole's just icebergs. It's just floating ice.
Yeah.
So
and it was in
no landmass.
That happened too. His entry in his journals where he's describing that incident, he said that the flight log was February 19th, 1947. That's our dad's birthday, by the way.
Is it really?
Not to the year, but to the day of month.
Oh yeah.
But it was February 19th, 1947, where he took that flight.
Right.
And I just find that fascinating because 4 months later in Roswell, something crashes that, is identical to the description of Byrd's description of the flying craft.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you've ever heard any theories about maybe the connection of those two events.
No, I can't say that I have. But it does open an interesting door if there is a connection between those two events.
Right.
And there might be some stranger connections to the UFO phenomenon. We mentioned Crowley a little earlier. He was in correspondence with another man named Jack Parsons.
Yes.
Who Jack Parsons himself.
Yep.
Rocket program.
Is Yeah, he was in the rocket program. He
Babylon.
was a practicing occultist. He was living in this flop house in the 40s in Pasadena, California, with L. Ron Hubbard, and they were having all this back and forth over this particular woman. They were spending money like ridiculous people and performing.
What was the name of his group? Was it Babylon Rising? Is
No,
that right?
The Babylon Working.
That's the ritual they
That's the
performed.
ritual, yeah.
But
he was involved with the OTO, I believe. The Ordo Templiaris Orientis.
Are they connected to Aleister Crowley?
Well, he was a devotee of Crowley's, though, wasn't he?
You're right. Yeah.
Right. They were doing. They were writing letters back and forth. They were in correspondence.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Right.
Did it get delivered by owl? Like in the Potter movies?
Nah, it got delivered by Bigfoot. Maybe that's what that UFO that crashed was doing. Maybe it was like the messenger.
Dogman's at the mailbox chasing the mailman away.
But I've even heard speculation that the Babylon Working corresponds with the first UFO sightings. That it wasn't until the Babylon Working was done that you start seeing these things in the sky.
Yeah.
I disagree with that to an extent because of the great airship flap of the 1880s, and people were seeing something back then. Of course, there was the Aurora, Texas crash of 1891 and the Missouri River crash of 1885. So there were other incidents that predate this that kind of lead me in a different direction, but fascinating nonetheless.
Yeah.
And within the year of the Babylon Working, both Al Gore and Hillary Clinton were born too. So
there we
throw
go.
it out there.
Well, there it is.
Throw it out there.
Little demon alien children.
Yeah, the horror Babylon. We all know who she is.
Riding the dragon.
Just put the red robes on. Get on with it.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
Well, that was always the interesting thing about the Babylon Working rituals. What Parsons was doing, what Crowley was doing, was it seemed to be trying to use, very, very powerful human, biological, passionate, neurological means to open up some sort of pathway or doorway, to rend the veil, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And there's got to be a history of that all throughout, the mystery cults, of people doing that, because there are so many strange mystical things. Like one of the strangest things to me from the Bible is, there are tons of them, but just you think about the incident with Moses and everything, not just all the plagues of Egypt, but just throwing down the staff and the combat with the Magi, that they have, and the staff turns into a snake, and the snake devours the other snake. There's got to be some sort of Pete, you could probably illuminate us on this. Has there ever been any exploration into why, from an occultic sort of arcane esoteric standpoint, why those staffs transform into snakes?
Well, the snake was a symbol to the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah.
Not only one of death and something to fear, but one of power as well. You think of their, and the name escapes me at the moment. There's a name for the serpent when it's placed on the burial mask. And King Tut famously has the serpent on his burial mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not an uncommon creature for these people to be dealing with. And the story you're talking about of Moses, this is where he contends with Janus and Jambres, the magicians of the Pharaoh. Now, keep in mind, Moses was raised as the grandson of the Pharaoh and would have been initiated into all the Egyptian magics as a child. So none of this would have been unfamiliar to him. Yeah. But Janus and Jambres, their story continues later on. They are, in one apocryphal tale, said to have breached the gates of heaven using magical talismans.
Really?
And they fight their way through 7 levels of heaven before they encounter Metatron.
Oh, yeah.
And then Metatron is finally one who expels them from heaven by tricking them into taking their talismans off. I always found this fascinating that these guys get a continuation to their story later on.
Yeah.
But, snakes were familiar to them.
Yeah.
Why, snakes come up in the Bible, when the Israelites all get snake bites. And Moses makes the brazen snake to hang up on the post, so they look at it and they're healed. Snakes come up again and again.
Yeah.
So, sometimes for good, sometimes for ill.
Well, you look
Most
at the
for ill. but
Most
Usually.
yeah, yeah, it's usually not good.
Yeah.
You know, well, and you use a medical symbol, you know,
Mhm.
with the dual serpents, you
Mhm.
know, and
the
that
caduceus.
The
Caduceus,
Yep.
yes,
Yep.
thank
Yeah, the
you.
caduceus.
Yeah, there is iconography that, and this is something we often like talk to Gary Wayne about too, because he's done so much research into this. But it's such an interesting topic to me. There's iconography that just it reaches back into the depths of history, and it
Mhm.
always shows up in one form or another, whether it's a certain kind of star or a certain geometric shape or a certain type of animal. And in all of these like mystery cults, there's always this repeated thing, and then it shows up in esoteric societies, you know, mystical societies, Masonic orders,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep.
and then institutions, and then you have in your pharmaceutical institutions or governments, companies. Everybody like repurposes this imagery
Mhm.
all throughout it, even in the modern world, even in the modern Western world. You know, and that's what always triggers, you know, my brain to wonder. Like, it's like a red flag. I look at that and I'm like,
Mhm.
why does that company use that symbol?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that symbol's from forever ago. What are they doing? You know,
Yeah.
what Masonic?
One wonders
you
if
know-
it's intentional or accidental at the end of the day. You know,
Yeah,
is this
there's a
something
little
they're
bit of
doing
that.
with knowledge of the symbol,
yeah,
repurposing, or kind of appropriating the symbol for a different purpose? You
Yeah.
know, or is this purely accidental that sometimes these things represent symbols from bygone eras and from different belief systems? I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
What's interesting with the serpent on the staff, you know, Moses erects it, and then when the people look on it, they're healed.
Mm.
You know, and God told him to make that.
Yeah.
You know, and it ends up being the only artifact that later on, when the Israelites continue this pattern of like worshiping false gods or, you know, whatever, it was the only artifact that they worshipped.
Yeah.
It was the only artifact that wasn't an idol that they made.
Yeah.
It was the only
Mhm.
artifact like Moses made or was given to them by, you know, their leadership. They ended up, you know, and he ended up having to destroy it later on.
Mhm.
But it kept leading them astray.
Yeah.
Through the
Just
Bible
like
chain.
anything.
Yeah.
You know?
But, yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. You know, the Egyptian imagery overall is really fascinating to me because, you know, going back to Antarctica, there are mountains that are shaped as pyramids.
Right.
There are pyramid mountains, and I looked at some of them.
Mhm.
You know, I looked at pictures of them, I looked at renderings of them, and then I looked at them on Google Maps, and I'm like, that can't be natural.
Right.
And they're like all
Yeah.
around the rim of
Mhm.
Antarctica. That is bizarre to me.
Yeah.
That is bizarre. What do you think? I mean,
They're fortresses along the wall.
I
don't
know. I don't know. What are some theories that you're aware of around what the pyramids ultimate purposes were? And
Well,
why would
you
they
know,
be in Antarctica.
there's this belief that Atlantis or some great mother culture, and we'll just use Atlantis as a placeholder for this mother culture, existed. There's a book I've been reading called The History of Civilization X. It talks about the Jasharites and how they spread across the globe in this great civilization in ancient times. And it's possible for me to believe that colonies of an advanced civilization, of an advanced mother culture, could have populated different areas of the world, bringing representatives of their archaeological, their architectural knowledge with them.
Mhm.
So I think this is the reason we see pyramid structures around the world, whether they be the Bosnian pyramids, the Alaskan pyramids, the Giza pyramids, the Mesoamerican pyramids, or the even aforementioned Antarctic pyramids. I think they all come from the same place. I think there was a great mother culture that built pyramids, that was versed in how to do it, that made them in the past.
Yeah.
Perhaps even before the Egyptians came along, the pyramids were built and were discovered by the Egyptians and repurposed by the Egyptians.
Yeah.
But I think they're all over the planet.
Hmm.
I think that they were put there by the same mother culture.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, that's Graham Hancock's original hypothesis with fingerprints of the gods. You know,
Mhm.
he was one of the first ones. That's a great book. It's probably been, I'm sure, you know, some of it has been course corrected or outmoded since then because it's been out forever. It's almost like there's Chariots of the Gods and then Fingerprints of the Gods and then the Genesis 6 conspiracy as far as like necessary,
Yeah.
you know, tomes for a lot of this stuff. And his contention was that there was some sort of ancient civilization that was brought to cataclysm 12,500 years ago. And he uses the Gizeh necropolis with Orion's belt. It's the whole, you know, symmetry thing. And then the big one that always got me was the water erosion on the Sphinx. You know, that and water
speaks volumes.
It really does. Yeah. It speaks volumes. And it's I'm sorry.
It speaks volumes.
But you know, it's like but that hadn't existed. There hadn't been enough water in the Nile Delta to create water erosion on that thing. And his whole contention was that it was originally a lion head, and it was facing in the direction of the constellation of Leo, and he does all. Anyways, all of that stuff. You know, you look at Machu Picchu, you look at the fact that you can't replicate the Gizeh necropolis these days. I know a lot of in the Christian esoteric world, a lot of our contention is that this was the Nephilim culture, you know, that pre-existed the flood because it was angelically inspired, you know.
I believe that. Yeah, I mean, I believe that the pyramids predate the deluge.
Yeah, and it ties in somehow with Atlantis and then a lot of these other fallen civilizations, these advanced ancient civilizations. There's something there. There's something there that's, you know, that is not talked about in our history, that whether it's covered up or ignored or ridiculed, it's just there's a mystery that has merit to it, you know. And yeah, it's fascinating to look into. In fact, that reminds me, I wanted to ask you if you have ever covered, I couldn't remember if you have you ever covered anything regarding Tartaria, Pete?
Never. No. Never touched it. Don't know enough about it.
I just discovered it. I have an aunt, Aunt Jane. She's originally from Scotland and she lives down in Florida, and she's awesome. We talk all the time. She's into all this stuff, and she included me into Tartaria, like you know, back in I think November or something. And I've been trying to dig into it ever since then, and it is fascinatingly weird. You know, it's one of those topics where like it, you know, people say that it originally was there were no dark ages, you know, that between the fall of the Roman Empire and then the Enlightenment, there was that 1,000-year reign, and that was supposedly the 1,000-year reign of Christ from the Bible, and that we're now living in. And during that time, Tartaria, the Empire of Tartaria, rose, and that's where we get like a lot of the architecture that we've had for the past few hundred years. It's bizarre. It's fascinating. And I had never heard of it until I was 38 years old.
I've heard of it here and there. I've never really sat down to do the research into it. So that's why I don't ever speak to it. You know, I do think that it is interesting.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the time to sit down and buckle down to really drill down deep enough to have a working knowledge of it.
Yeah.
So I like to have a working knowledge of most of the nonsense that I talk about. Before I start talking about it, you know, and that's why I kind of leave Tartaria off the table for now.
How long? Well, real quick, we've had some really great comments, by the way. Jesse Miller at the Crow's Nest has been killing it with some really funny comments. I do want to give a shout out to Way of Balance for Antediluvian. So in keeping with the creepy little book tradition, Antediluvian is one of the buzzwords.
Cheers.
That, you take a sip from your soda pop, correct?
That's right.
Yep. So Antediluvian, Nephilim, Buckcherry, there are a bunch of them that that are fun. If you ever want to like get everybody drunk who's watching it, you just like mention rapid fire, all of the, you know, all of the buzzwords. How long does it take you to research a topic on average before you feel confident in doing a video?
Good question.
You know, with the other videos that I used to make these short informational videos. The back catalog, it's still there. Evergreen videos. You can watch them at any point. They're still as relevant as the day I put them up. They don't really touch
fantastic. I love them.
Anything beyond the subject matter at hand, you know. For those, I would do about 30 hours of research, you know, from beginning to end, scripting and memorizing and then filming and then editing the videos. You know, for now, you know, I do my best to kind of like scuttle around, get 2 or 3 hours in, you know, before my workday starts.
Yeah.
And then when my workday ends, I kind of have a half hour, and then I do the show.
Oh yeah, and your live stream, Creepy Little Book usually live streams nightly at 11 p.m. Central Time, midnight Eastern Time. Is that correct?
No, it's 1 a.m. Eastern time.
1 a.m. Eastern
So,
Time.
so I think that would be midnight your time, right?
It would. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So it's 1 a.m. Eastern Monday through Friday. I take the weekends off now. I used to do 7 days a week, but that was killer.
Yeah. Pete is a real workhorse when it comes to that. And dude, you got to have a life at some point, right? Now that you have kids,
really.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I keep it busy.
But during the week, small hours. Once the small hours hit, once that witching hour hits, he comes out of the void.
I
with
love
his
it, too.
Gandalfian
I love
staff
it. Yeah, man.
microphone to lead everybody into the strange.
So, what got you into this? What was the catalyst that said, you know what, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I'm going to talk about all this stuff. I'm going to share all this stuff.
It was pretty simple. I was a musician, and then the band broke up, and everybody started getting married and having kids. And I was like, dude, I'm not going to start a new band now. What am I going to do? So I bought some equipment, and I started podcasting. And this was about 10 years ago. So we did a brief stint with a podcast. It was like just me and a handful of friends drinking beers and talking. And then I'd cut in some music, and maybe we'd do a little audio skit. Like it was goofy. But we did 50 episodes of this podcast. It's gone now. I don't know where the hell I don't even think I have backups of the recordings. But after that, I was like, why am I not just doing a YouTube channel? So I was in touch with a buddy of mine who lived across the country. He was in Portland. I was in Philly. He was interested in doing something along the lines of a podcast or a YouTube channel. We discussed it at length. I spent a year just doing research. Then he moved back to Philly, and we worked on a channel together called Yellow Cube. Some of those videos are still up on my Patreon. We did, like excursions out to weird locations around Philadelphia that had strange history. We also did interviews with Freemasons or Rosicrucians or anybody who was willing to talk to us. But at the end of it all, I think the workload was a little more than he expected it to be. So he kind of walked away from the project. And then I said to myself, I've got all these ideas. I know all this weird stuff. Like, what am I doing with myself if I don't just pull the trigger and start the channel by myself? Yeah. And that's what I did. I spent about $1,000 on a camera and backdrops and software and stuff like that. And I just started making videos, and that was 7 years ago now.
7 years ago, that's right. Because I've been trying to look at your old videos to find out how far back it goes. Yeah, about 2015, 2016. And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of your videos are single take. Is that correct?
Yeah. I don't use any jump cuts.
Dude, that's awesome. And that is such a rarity.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Would you spend a lot of time, about half an hour or so, like rehearsing beforehand, or would you just jump right in and see if you can get it on?
Oh, I would just jump right in and do it wrong over and over again and film it 50 times.
Right, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what we do with the live stream.
And I'd have these scripts at hand. Like, it was really about remembering, for me.
Yeah.
Like, and I would use mnemonic devices to kind of help me. Everything becomes a song for me. So when I needed to remember a script, I turn it all into a song, and then it's all in my noodle, so I can spit it back out to the camera.
That's smart. Yeah,
I
like that.
The performer skill set comes out as a singer. Yeah,
but yeah, it was a lot of takes, lots of takes. For those videos. Just doing it over and over again.
Right. Yeah, that's one of those. It's sort of like when I edit a novel. The final stage of editing is to read it out loud. And like, if there were, and I would do that at my security gig even, and if there was like anybody around, you sound like a lunatic, like if you're doing that in an apartment, people are like, I know he doesn't have anybody there. What is he doing?
Which to non-writers,
reading art, never mind.
To non-writers, that probably smells like, it sounds like you're smelling your own fart out loud.
Well, I mean, I am,
and then responding to it out loud. But right, really, it does help because readability and what you hear. I mean, that's going to play into the audiobook certainly, but in my case, I write kids' books, so it's like people are going to be reading their kids this story aloud at bedtime, and it needs to, I don't want to get my merds mixed up, and I want it to be right. You know what I mean?
I could see,
Yeah.
Pete, did you ever have like any experiences where you had like some neighbors who knew what you were doing and they'd be like pounding on the wall like, that sounded like crap, do it again?
No, nothing like that.
Use that one, it's good. That's awesome.
I have a question
just
for you.
a lot of cursing and doing things over and over. A
Yeah,
lot of
okay.
repetition.
The
Yeah,
occasional
yeah.
throwing of something,
Yeah.
So you have a Patreon page. And this is coming from a couple of guys that have just kind of gotten on this whole live stream podcast path, and you're way farther down the path than us. You got into Patreon a little earlier than we did. Is it still worth it? Should we do it? Does that really add value to what you do?
I mean, there's memberships on YouTube now, so it's kind of similar to what Patreon is.
right?
I'm also on Subscribestar because some people don't like to use Patreon. For I don't know if it's moral reasons or political reasons or a combination of the two, but
Sure.
I think there's value to be taken from it, and people like to support. Then I mean, by all means, I encourage it. Obviously.
Right. Well, and you also supplement with, obviously there are super chats in the, in the live streams that are really
Yeah.
good, and then you have your awesome Teespring page.
Thank you. Yes.
dude,
Yeah.
I gotta check that out. I haven't seen that yet.
Got a lot of weird merch inspired by the esoteric and the extraterrestrial. Like all the weird stuff we talk about has kind of inspired the merchandise. So it's not really a bunch of shirts that say creepy little book over them. It's more
it's
like
awesome stuff.
resist
Defeat
reptilians, Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah, defeat Moloch.
Yeah.
I wanted the store to be bigger than the show. So
Smart.
you don't necessarily have to be a walking billboard for the creepy little book.
Yeah.
When you pick up some apparel from the store, it's it's a wide variety of weird things.
Cool.
Rather
Very
than
cool.
self promotion.
Well, that's what makes your Teespring store so genius and so effective, is that I have the Defeat Moloch coffee mug, and it doesn't say creepy little book on it. It doesn't have like the logo or anything. It doesn't have Spring Hill Jack on it or anything. It says Defeat Moloch, and it's got this awesome image. And if anybody's ever like, oh, Moloch, yeah, I know about Moloch because of whatever, like adrenochrome and QAnon and all this stuff, and you're like, yeah, you should check this channel out. It's from Creepy Little Book. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's a genius way of marketing. It's really
very nice.
Thank you.
yeah, we like it a lot.
I got another question for you.
Yeah.
You've been because you mentioned going around and visiting strange places, doing interviews with like Rosicrucians and Masons and so forth.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to share, you don't have to. But have you had any strange paranormal experiences when you're out doing any of that? Or
None.
since you've started this journey doing Creepy Little Book?
I've never had any personal experience of my own with the strange or unusual. Nothing. I've never seen a UFO. I've never encountered a spirit. Nothing.
Interesting.
And it's like, well, why do I believe in the weird stuff that I do, considering I've never had an experience? I hope to have an experience at some point. I think it would be strange and interesting. I don't actively go hunt. I'm not like a ghost hunter in my spare time. I'm not a paranormal investigator.
Right.
I'm a researcher and a content creator. So I generally just kind of pour the information into my noodle, try to, regurgitate it in a succinct manner where people can understand what I'm talking about, and hopefully be entertaining at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I've never had any kind of experience. I'm jealous of people that do. I don't go out in the wilderness enough to meet Bigfoot. I was old enough for ghosts. And my eyesight's not keen enough to catch these UFOs with all this light pollution around here. So
my wife grabbed my arm last night. We got home from this little thing we were doing. We got home, and there was a light zipping around in the sky sporadically, and it freaked her out. She's like, "What is that?" And she doesn't believe in any of this stuff, right? I mean, she's really grounded, but she's like, "Oh my gosh, what is that? What is that? What is that?" And I'm like, helicopter? She's like, no, look at the move. And it was like darting back and
Is
forth.
it like a drone?
And it had red lights and green lights. I'm like, yeah, that's a drone. You can relax.
It's someone's little radio drone.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell her, oh my God. I think that's a UAP.
Yeah.
I think it's a UFO. We better get inside, start
we better-
praying.
Yeah, get inside and get holy water.
Grab your Bible. Let's go.
Where's Mel Gibson when you need him?
It's crazy.
Well, you know what? It makes me think, Pete. Most people who delve into that stuff on a personal level, like I know a lot of girls who have like messed around with Ouija boards,
I was gonna bring that
and
up,
then they have like pretty dark stuff happen.
Yeah.
Spooky. And I personally, I dissuade people from ever messing with.
It's
that
a
kind of
shortcut
stuff.
to having an experience you don't want to have.
Yeah, and I can't
I
help but
did
wonder.
the Ouija
like,
board for Halloween.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like me and my
Careful.
wife. I put the camera on.
They were
did the Ouija board
understaffed
for
that night.
Halloween,
Devils
and,
were understaffed that night. You got lucky.
Nothing happened. I didn't
Yeah.
expect anything to happen. I don't believe in Ouija boards. I don't think that it's like. I don't think that the $2 piece of balsa wood that this Ouija board is made of
Made
is
by
a
Parker
conduit to
Graham.
the spirit world. Like,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
don't think it's got Milton Bradley stamped on it.
Milton Bradley,
it's,
that's what
it's
it
like
is, yes. Yes.
Money
it
bags.
is- it is as asinine to me as insinuating that the yo-yo is a martial arts weapon, the same way that a Ouija board can open the gates of hell.
Listen, you don't know how many. how
Look,
many
if it's
thugs
made in
I've
China, it
defeated
ain't gonna work. That's the bottom line. It ain't gonna open no gates to anywhere.
with. Right.
Now,
Yeah.
if we're talking about a tree that got hit by lightning, and then we carved the Ouija board from that wood, and
Oh, yeah.
you know
Okay.
that's a different story. But I don't think the mass-produced talking boards,
You don't think that
are-
there's like some black robed, lamb's blooded covered altar
Yeah.
staff wielding is standing in the Milton and Bradley factory?
it's not
The assembly
doing that to
line.
every board is the good. It's just not happening.
That's great.
I can't help but think that there is like a team of expert warrior angels that is surrounding Pete and his family at all times, being like, "Not today, not today, demons.
That's right.
Not today,
That's
you
right.
sons of whores." We've
Which they are technically.
Right,
Well, I mean, we
see?
believe.
Yeah, demons, Nephilim. Yeah.
Nephilim, yeah.
So we're almost out of time, or we're over time. So I apologize. I do want to ask like one final, just sort of funny question.
Okay.
What is your favorite topic that you've discovered or that you've covered? And then, as a polar opposite of that, what's like the dumbest one you've ever covered?
Great question.
The dumbest one I ever did was probably the Red Ghost of Arizona.
Red Ghost of Arizona. Okay.
Yeah, the Red Ghost of Arizona. This takes place in the 1880s. This family, a homestead, I guess. The men folk go out to tend the sheep. The ladies are left behind with the kids.
Okay.
They then one of the women goes down to the water to wash clothes when they hear a terrible scream, and they look out the window to see the devil riding on the back of a red monster, trampling this woman to death. So they lock themselves in the house and they wait for the men to come back. These men come back. They find her all trampled. They see cloven hoof prints all over the place. She's obviously dead. I mean, something killed her. So then for the next 10 years, the stories of the devil riding on the back of this red monster kind of propagate around the area of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Different people see it. They take shots at it. They try to kill it. It doesn't die. Eventually, somebody did shoot the rider and take its head off and found it to be a skull. So these 10 years go by of all these different sightings of the red ghost until one day, this farmer sees the Red Ghost of Arizona in his turnip patch. And he levels his rifle on the windowsill, takes a shot at it, and finally somebody kills the Red Ghost of Arizona. And it turned out to be a camel from the U.S. Camel Corps. Because back then they imported all these camels for the army to use.
It makes
in the
sense. It's Arizona.
Southwest.
Yes.
So
Wait a
this
second.
camel had gotten away, and apparently somebody tied somebody to the camel who died because the body was still tied to it. The head was gone from a previous shooting, but
Yeah.
it still had the human remains tied to it. It had been this animal was in incredible pain. You got to figure these ropes were
I
cutting
feel
into
bad.
its skin. It had to be driven mad by the pain it was in from having this dead rider tied
Poor
to it.
camel.
The smell. You know, you can smell it.
The Red Ghost of Arizona turned out to be a camel.
You know,
awesome.
I just love the fact that once upon a time there was a U.S. Camel Corps.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So
Smart move.
that was
is
probably
so
the dumbest one I've ever done. As far as my favorite stuff, I just love the UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
mythology, I'd rather say, around the UFO phenomenon. The idea of these contactees in the 50s and 60s who were talking to our space brothers who wanted to avoid nuclear war, to the abductees of the 80s and 90s who were being taken for hybrid alien space programs. I love the mythology around the UFO phenomenon. It is so deep and so weird, and it connects the Hollow Earth with these ascended masters from Theosophy. When you talk about things like the Ashtar Galactic Command, the space cops who defend Earth from the evil reptilians, I mean, it's real space opera at the end of the day. But I love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
eat it up with a spoon. I can't get enough.
It's like Oreos in a
Yeah.
bowl with milk on it. I just, I'm all about it,
Well, let me ask you this: do you think, in your opinion, do you think official disclosure is coming anytime soon?
Yeah.
Never. I think first contact will come before disclosure.
Yeah. I do too.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think we will see
That'd be even
aliens
more
show
shocking.
up on their own
Mhm.
before the government will ever admit anything they've been hiding.
Yeah. Because they've had so many opportunities along the way to do so. Why would
It's
they
been
change
80
that?
years almost. So, I mean, they're not going to come up with the truth at this point. Unless, it's like they're backed into a corner and here come the moon men. Like once the moon men are here, then I think you would see an effort to declassify what the government there would probably be hearings to see what the government knew over the years. But I think first contact is more likely than disclosure.
The interesting thing about that too is that if disclosure happens, like you say, and you're probably right, before, or if arrival and revelation happens before disclosure, there probably will be some truth and reconciliation hearings about the cover-ups.
Absolutely.
Talk about moon men. I haven't really heard much about that.
Oh, I use moon men as a catch-all for aliens.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha.
So if I'm
Right.
talking about moon men, I just mean aliens in general.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting. From the Roswell incident, they describe, or someone describes, that it was like one of the Greys when they described the body.
Zeta Reticuli Greys.
But Admiral Byrd's description wasn't of the Greys. The people piloting that craft were the tall, blonde,
The Palladians, the
Nordics, the Pleiadians.
Yeah, the Nordics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did an episode where I covered as many species of aliens as I could fit into an hour. I think it's called Extraterrestrials A to Z.
Oh,
But
cool.
Interesting.
but I covered as many as possible that I could from digging through various sources on these kind of things, where I covered all the different Greys and the different reptilians. And the Lyrans are cat people. The orange, the blue avians, they're bird people, I believe. Just all manner of strange creatures out there.
Yeah.
There's a menagerie,
Do you think any of the cryptids that are reportedly cited it could actually be
Bigfoot,
one of those
Mothman.
races of extraterrestrial?
I think the Dover demon that was spotted in Dover, Massachusetts, very well might have been an extraterrestrial. It had the appearance of one, bulbous head, big eyes.
Yeah.
I think some of the Mantis Man sightings in New Jersey could be an extraterrestrial.
Mhm.
But I think cryptids are native to the Earth. At very most, we're talking ultra-terrestrials in the form of like trolls and fairies and gnomes and leprechauns and goblins and those kind of things.
What about rakes? Because they kind of have the appearance of almost like a gray. I don't know. What would they kind of?
I'm under the impression that they're just creepypasta. I don't really think there's much of a phenomenon to back that up. It's like Slenderman.
Okay.
It's things.
Okay.
Right.
Now, could these creatures that are the creation of fiction become tulpas or thought forms and then manifest in that way? That is a possibility if there is enough intent to create them as, let's say, essentially non-corporeal intelligences separate from the tulpa mancer. So, yeah, there is kind of a connection there.
Okay.
Yeah, that was always kind of the thing with angelic mythology as well. Biblical angelic mythology was that like the angels could take on forms of whatever they wanted, whether it was human or possibly animal. There is an ethereal, non-corporeal to corporeal transmorphification sort of nature to a lot of this stuff that's really interesting. Bigfoot. Yes? No? Pete?
Animal.
Yeah. Animal?
Animal?
Okay.
Undiscovered animal.
That's a cool answer, because that's always the thing is like, is it a pre-Adamic holdover? Is it a Nephilim creation? You know, is it
Gigantopithecus?
Yeah.
I think it's an undiscovered North American ape. You know, I don't think it's anything more fantastic than that. I mean, I've talked about, you know, is Bigfoot an extra dimensional being? Is Bigfoot an alien? You know, is Bigfoot a secret government project? Now, I think Bigfoot is an animal. I think the government might be aware of Bigfoot. There's a story that comes from a Battle Mountain forest fire back in the 90s where some National Guard, reported that they had treated injured Bigfoot from the forest fire.
Yeah.
But I think that they're just animals.
Yeah.
You know,
there
they're
are
smart.
a lot of stories.
I think, they're like dolphins in some regard, but I do think they're animals. You know,
who was it that communicated with dolphins? Was it Terrence McKenna when he would take his heroic doses of LSD? Is he the one who would communicate with dolphins?
Oh, I'm not sure.
maybe if you take enough DMT, you can communicate with Bigfoot.
Heroic doses.
I'm not about to do any of that.
Me neither.
I'd be afraid I wouldn't come back right.
Yeah, we're not condoning the use of hallucinogenic drugs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I did like that phrase. That was nice.
Psychonaut. Yeah. Psychonauts.
Good.
Yeah. There's a great old PC game or Xbox game called Psychonauts. That's a lot of fun to play.
Interesting.
Interesting. Anyways, dude, Pete, thank you. I know we're well over an hour. I apologize for being.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a dream of mine for like a year and a half to 2 years now. It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Where just for our audience real quick, where are the best places for people to find you, Pete?
Well, you can check me out right here on YouTube. I do a show Monday through Fridays at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we delve into different subjects from the strange, everything from the esoteric to the extraterrestrial, the spiritual to the supernatural, and all that lies between. I also make content on other platforms like Odyssey, BitChute, and Spotify. You can also find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And, as we mentioned, the great merch store, if you want to check that out too.
Are all your channels like on Odyssey and BitChute, Spotify, are they all Creepy Little Book?
Everything's Creepy Little Book. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can find links to all of these on the YouTube page too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Pete, you are the master of the historical. You are the Art Bell of the 21st century. Yeah. We love having you on.
Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome anytime you want. Dude, this is so much fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time, Pete. You're the man.
Awesome.
Thanks.
See you later, buddy.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Dude, how fun is that?
Oh, Pete's awesome. Yeah, Pete's awesome.
Pete is honestly like, he is. Oh, I'm sure we probably just lost our camera, of course.
Did we?
That's a good screen cap too.
Right on cue.
Yeah,
well,
right on
cue.
cue.
Computer's lag. That's
it's just lagging.
That's our thumbnail. Oh wait, no.
So the comments have been really good too. We've had Pete's live stream is awesome because he dives into a lot of the comments. He interacts with a lot of them. We haven't done that a lot in the past because honestly, for any of you who are still watching, thank you for joining us. Thank you for commenting. Yeah. Man, so much of Pete's audience has joined us.
The chat was really great. I loved watching the interaction. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, a lot of times we have so few people in the chat that we're usually pretty fixated on whoever the guest is. So we haven't been intentionally ignoring anything in the chat. We've been, we're so used to just focusing on the guest, but the chat has been killer. I can't wait to go back and read this.
Like, Normally Jonathan's driving the interview. He does sit in the Han Solo seat, if you will.
Are you the Chewbacca?
I'm the Chewbacca.
I'm the hairy, short, fat one. Like, how am I not the Chewbacca?
Dude, I'm managing the chat, so normally I'm like, it's pretty, there's not a lot going on, but I'm definitely the Chewbacca of the podcast.
Which means that he's the one who keeps the Millennium Falcon flying.
I'm the hairless Chewbacca.
Pull my hair out. Like, why isn't it working? Why isn't the hyperdrive working? Yeah. I mean,
I won this one anyway.
Chewie over here really does save save the live stream and make it everything that it is.
But this was great,
Nick's the
and you
producer.
guys on the chat, man,
Yeah,
thank you.
dude.
I loved watching the comments, the interaction between you guys,
Yeah.
and then the comments on what Pete was talking about. So
Tina
thank you.
Tomaszewski, Tina Tomaszewski is awesome. She sort of helped set this up. She is also the sort of the admin or the moderator for Creepy Little Book.
Oh,
For
fantastic.
Pete's live stream.
Fantastic.
And then Ginger Viking Jesus is on the on the comments as well.
Nice.
I don't do that as well as Pete does. Pete's the master at Ginger, so I apologize. And then Red Monarch, Jesse Miller at the Crow's Nest has had some awesome comments on here. He's been killing it. So man, Way of Balance also awesome. Pete's audience.
Nina Sky
really...
was on briefly.
Oh,
Nina Sky was on. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Nina
What's up,
joined us
Nina?
again, man. It's great to have her back.
Nina's great.
And Pseudonoid, awesome, great comments. Thank you. Red Monarch was really weighing in. It was just, it was awesome, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. We
Thank
really
you
appreciate
to, and a lot of this is the highest live view count we've ever had on our live stream. And I want to personally thank the Creepy Little Book audience on Discord and on YouTube for hopping over and joining us, and for all of our friends on Instagram who have joined us for making this probably the most successful live stream, like, you know, in the moment live stream.
Yeah, in the moment for sure. Yeah,
that we've
definitely,
had.
yeah. And I'd like to know too, like what other, what other guests, what other interviews you guys like to see.
Absolutely.
We interview authors. We interview,
interesting
people, whether it's social media, interesting authors, or people like Gary Wayne.
Yeah, Gary Wayne,
he's fantastic. Last week's episode was amazing. If you like esoterica, boy, he goes deep.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have Pete on at the next week after Gary Wayne.
Yeah,
it was the perfect dovetail because Gary Wayne, he's the author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy. We've interviewed him 3 times now.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
And he always gives us 2 hours. And Gary Wayne is he is a mentat of biblical esoterica.
Oh, dude, 30 years of research.
30 years of research for the Genesis 6 Conspiracy.
You wind him up and he just talks.
I would love to
goes
find
as deep
out
as you need.
Yeah,
that sounded bad.
He's
sorry.
Sorry,
My
Gary.
apologies, Gary.
Sorry, bud. That's the Michter's ride talking.
We can solve that right now.
We're just gonna drown that memory. We're just gonna smother it in booze and drown it right out, like it never even happened. No, Gary Wayne. If you're still watching, if you're a fan of Creepy Little Book, if you're a fan of Pete's, and if you're into Christian mythology, Christian esoterica, secret society, stuff like that, Gary Wayne's Genesis 6 project or Genesis 6 Conspiracy is sort of a perfect dovetail into a lot of what Pete explores, because Creepy Little Book is so awesome in the amount of the wide breadth of material. I mean, Pete has done for several years now. Pete has covered such an awesome array of topics, and whether you're Christian or agnostic or atheist or New Age or supernatural or spiritual, whatever you identify or don't identify as, there's something there for you. Even if you're just like
if you're a seeker, if you're just a seeker, you're just you're open-minded, and you just want to.
And he really is like the Art Bell of the 21st century.
He really is, dude.
And I know that's kind of like what he aims for, but like he totally nails it.
If I were a Canadian trucker and I had no money, I'd probably just sit around and listen to Creepy Little Book.
For sure. Yeah. Let's see. All right, let's look at. I wonder if we could look at some of the chats before we.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see here.
Let's see. What do we got? What does this say? We're almost 1/8 of the way through. Oh, we got it's. Let's see. What does this say? I'm just going to bring it up here on the screen. Here we go. Through the second horseman, I'm feeling confident. Probably referring to end times. Second horseman of the apocalypse. I'm
Jesse
assuming.
Miller at the Crow's Nest says we're almost 1/8 of the way through the second horseman. I'm feeling confident. Yeah, you would really appreciate Gary Wayne's stuff in that regard because the prophecy angle of Revelations is something that he touches on really well. And yeah, you're probably right, man. I mean, the end time stuff, we didn't really, we didn't have time this time, but Pete has always been pretty explicit about on his on the Creepy Little Books live stream and all his channels, he avoids talking politics. I know he has political opinions, and we kind of, if we had time time as sort of a target of opportunity. We were going to about that. Hopefully we can get him back and ask him what he thinks as far as end times.
Yeah. What's going on? How it ties into the end times? Yeah, sure. So we did that with Gary Wayne. He gave us some great insight. Yeah. I'd love to know Pete's opinion on all that.
On everything. Well, and he's up in Boston, so I mean, it's
the first time with Pete though, and like with any guest, you don't want to get like political,
right? You want to get too heavy. We
don't want to like drive any wedges or anything.
Yeah, it's
take any hard stances.
Jeez, just have coffee first.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly right.
Just go get a sandwich. Why does it gotta be a marriage proposal?
Interesting comment from Red Monarch. Let's see, let me bring it up. We're 5 years into the 7-year tribulation.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, dude, Red Monarch, you might be right, man. It's so hard to tell.
I mean, wars and rumors of wars, pestilences, past 2 years of pestilence. Absolutely. Could be.
Yeah. What was Jesse Miller's comment right there?
Right here. Let's see. Pull it up. I'm figuring 2.5 years per horseman. We have 3 down. 7 to go, referring to years.
Yeah.
The way 3 ought to be. The way 3 ought to be great.
Yeah. What was go back up to that comment at the top there at the Goslings? Yeah, that's from Ginger Viking Jesus. Ginger Viking Jesus is
this has to do with how you belted out her name and the way Pete
or
does
his name,
or excuse me, his name. And compared to the way Pete does it.
Oh yeah. Let's see. He says, I believe the way Pete belts my name comes from the bottom of the gut and finishes in the upper jaw. You're probably right. You know what? And I think it's
want to try it again?
Nice, I think it's a nice way that he's he's a singer, so he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
We are not.
Ginger Viking Jesus. I still don't think it's as good as Pete's. Pete's is the master, but yeah. Ginger Viking Jesus lends itself well to it.
We need to do something like that for Adam Burrell from the UK. He's our audiobook narrator. He joins us sometimes. We need to have some surprising chant or something when he comes on. He's a great dude. If he jumps on the chat, you guys would love chatting with him as well. What does this say? Oh, well, that's great. You're holding back, let it out. Yeah. You gotta go for it.
You want me to go for it? Okay.
Go for it. Okay, I'm gonna move this back.
All right, let's see. Yeah, because I'm so curious. I'm so cautious about blowing out the mic or disturbing the family that is like next door. That's it. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm gonna take my earmuffs off though.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Ginger Viking Jesus. How's that?
That's good.
How's that?
I feel like a UFC fight's about
I know.
to
Well,
break
that's
out.
kind of like what I.
Not between you and me. I don't want to get hurt. I'd go to the hospital. Obviously, clearly, I would not make it to work tomorrow. Let's see. Ginger Viking Jesus says,
"Just gotta send it. Just gotta send it, baby.
Send it."
Yep.
I love it. Well, Red Monarch is validating your recent attempt. He said that's exactly
that
it.
Good?
Fantastic, dude. That is awesome.
Yeah, baby.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I got to do it in honor of Pete. Listen, I have been, they say what you can't dazzle, you wear down. I have been courting. I've been trying to get Pete to come on, and he finally said yes.
I believe that's every wife's motto.
Yeah. I got to do something to honor Pete.
Oh, heaven forgive me. Sorry, about
dude,
that,
he's
Jesus.
so busy, and the fact that he was willing to spend some time with this man. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. We weren't super focused. I know a lot of Pete's interviews and stuff that he does is pretty focused on a specific topic, but we just wanted to kind of have him on and discuss a broad array of topics and see.
Yeah, we wanted to introduce our audience to.
Yeah,
everything he did. We only had an hour, and he covers so much.
Oh, I know.
So we had to kind of keep it on a shallower level. We know that most of you guys on the chat are followers of Pete, and you guys know that he can go very, very, very deep on all these topics.
So educated.
So thanks for hanging with us. I know a lot of this is kind of a little more milk and toast for you. But thank you. We'll have him back, and maybe we can go deeper.
I'd love to have him back. We'd be honored to have him back, and we'd be honored to have you guys back on the chat.
For sure.
Sharing all your thoughts with it. And next time, we'll pay more attention to live chat and see if we can maybe get some questions to bounce over to
Yeah,
Pete,
sure.
and have it be a little bit more like the live stream that he does, where it's a little bit more back and forth. But man, we love having you guys on.
Yeah, thank you. It's been awesome.
Jesse, Ginger Viking Jesus, Red Monarch, Nina, all the other people who have commented.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. It's been awesome. It's been
Creepy
awesome.
Little Book on YouTube, Odyssey, BitChute, Spotify. We'll post all the links below, and then his Teespring page is awesome. He's got a Patreon. I love his coffee mug, man. That Defeat Moloch coffee
Yeah,
mug
it's
is
cool.
so cool.
Very cool.
I never let my younger brother use that mug. That is mine.
So you can't let him touch it.
Yeah, and
No.
Pete is a real sweetheart. He's super smart, and man, we're just real honored to have him. So
Yeah, it was
thank
great.
you, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm
All right,
Jonathan,
guys. I'm Nick.
and we are the Gosslings, and we hope everybody has a great night. Thank you, Tina. Thank you for joining in, and thank you, Pete. You are the man. And Pete's live stream is every night at 1 a.m. Eastern time, midnight Central time, Monday through Friday. He takes the weekends off because he's a responsible adult with children,
Which is why we so much more appreciate him.
and he does so much more hard work than we do.
Yeah.
And then, or at least more than I do. Nick probably does most of the work around here, but I just breeze in like Nick Nolte and be like, where do I stand? Where can I get a drink? And then let's see. Discord. He's also on Discord, so he's got a whole Discord channel that's really fun to watch and chime in on. So
Cool.
yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll put the word out when we have our next amazing interview.
Yeah.
And we'll try to get Pete back as well.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you guys later. Thanks
Yeah.
again.
Thank you, guys. Have a good week. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.